The sound of a 911 call plays over a black screen. A child's trembling voice is heard. "I need help. My sister is locked in the basement and I can't get her out. My dad's girlfriend did it. Please come quick. I'm scared she'll come back." Dispatcher: "Sweetheart, you're very brave for calling. Can you tell me your address?" The screen fades in to show a modest two-story house in a quiet suburban neighborhood as autumn leaves flutter down around it. Narrator: on October 12, 2023, a phone call from 8-year-old Lily Thompson would uncover a disturbing situation that had been hidden behind the doors of an ordinary-looking home in Riverdale. What investigators discovered would shock the community and change multiple lives forever. The camera zooms in on the front door of the house, where police lights now flash against the windows. But before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. Riverdale Elementary School was known for its bright hallways and engaged teachers. Ms. Rebecca Martinez had been teaching third grade there for over 15 years and prided herself on knowing her students well. But even she had to admit that something about Lily Thompson had been troubling her lately. Lily had always been a bright, talkative child with an infectious laugh that could lift the mood of the entire classroom. The daughter of a respected local electrician, Robert Thompson, she had been a model student during her first and second grade years. But over the past few months, Ms. Martinez had noticed concerning changes. Lily's previously impeccable attendance had become spotty. Her schoolwork, once done with care and enthusiasm, was now often incomplete or hastily finished. Most worrying were the dark circles under her eyes and her increasing reluctance to talk about home. On that Thursday morning in October, Lily arrived at school looking more exhausted than usual. During morning circle time, when Ms. Martinez asked the students to share something they were looking forward to that weekend, Lily remained silent, her eyes fixed on the classroom floor. "Lily, would you like to share?" Ms. Martinez asked gently, crouching down beside the girl's chair. Lily shook her head, still not making eye contact. "No, thank you," she whispered. When the lunch bell rang, Ms. Martinez asked Lily to stay back for a moment. "Is everything okay at home, sweetie?" she asked, keeping her tone casual while studying the child's reaction. "It's fine," Lily answered too quickly. "Dad's just really busy with work, and Karen helps take care of us." Karen Mitchell had entered the Thompson family's life about 8 months earlier. Robert Thompson, a widower since his wife's death from cancer 3 years ago, had met Karen at a home improvement store where she worked as a design consultant. Their relationship had progressed quickly, with Karen moving into the Thompson home just 4 months after they began dating. "And how is Sarah doing?" Ms. Martinez asked, referring to Lily's 6-year-old sister who attended first grade in the same school. At the mention of her sister, Lily's expression changed. A flash of something, worry, fear, crossed her face before she controlled it. "Sarah's fine. She had a cold, so she's staying home today. Karen's taking care of her." Ms. Martinez made a mental note to check with the first grade teacher about Sarah's recent attendance. Something in Lily's demeanor raised her professional concerns, but without clear evidence of a problem, there wasn't much she could do beyond monitoring the situation. "Well, if you ever want to talk about anything, I'm here to listen," she offered, giving Lily's shoulder a gentle squeeze. Lily nodded and hurried to join her classmates for lunch. Ms. Martinez watched her go, the unease in her stomach growing. Later that afternoon, when the dismissal bell rang, Ms. Martinez noticed that Lily lingered in the classroom, slowly packing her backpack and glancing anxiously toward the door. "Is someone picking you up today, Lily?" she asked. "Karen usually does," Lily replied, "but sometimes she forgets." Ms. Martinez frowned. "If she's not here in 10 minutes, come back to the classroom and we'll call your dad, okay?" Lily nodded, but the look on her face suggested she didn't think calling her father would help. Sure enough, 15 minutes later, Lily returned to the classroom, shoulders slumped. "Karen's not here." Ms. Martinez called Robert Thompson's cell phone, but it went straight to voicemail. When she tried the home number, Karen answered, sounding irritated. "I got caught up with something important," Karen said dismissively when Ms. Martinez explained the situation. "Tell Lily to take the bus. She knows the route." "The buses left 20 minutes ago," Ms. Martinez explained, keeping her tone professional despite her growing concern. "Fine," Karen sighed heavily. "I'll be there in 15 minutes. Make sure she waits out front." When Ms. Martinez relayed this to Lily, the girl's face fell. "Can I wait in here with you?" she asked in a small voice. "Of course you can," Ms. Martinez assured her, wondering not for the first time what was happening in the Thompson household. Karen arrived nearly 40 minutes later, honking impatiently from a silver SUV parked in the fire lane. Lily gathered her things, gave Ms. Martinez a quick hug, and trudged out to the vehicle, her small shoulders hunched as if carrying an invisible weight. Through the school windows, Ms. Martinez watched as Karen appeared to be scolding Lily the moment she got into the car. As they drove away, the teacher made a decision. Tomorrow, she would speak with the school counselor about her concerns. But by the next morning, everything had changed. Lily didn't sleep that night. How could she, knowing that Sarah was locked in the basement again? It had happened before. Karen's special punishment, when Sarah cried too much or made too much noise or simply annoyed Karen with her neediness. Usually it only lasted an hour or two, just long enough to terrify the 6-year-old before Karen would relent, explaining to the trembling child that it was for her own good and that she needed to learn respect. But this time was different. Sarah had been in the basement since before Lily left for school that morning. More than 12 hours now. And when Lily had tried to sneak down to check on her sister after dinner, Karen had caught her at the basement door. "Your sister's learning an important lesson," Karen had said, her voice cold despite her smile. "If you interfere, you'll join her down there. Is that what you want?" Lily had shaken her head, tears welling in her eyes. "Where's Dad?" she'd asked, though she already knew the answer. "Working the night shift," Karen replied, "like he does every Thursday. Now go to your room and do your homework. I don't want to see you again tonight." Lily had obeyed, but instead of doing homework, she'd sat on her bed trying to think of what to do. Her father wouldn't be home until morning, and he probably wouldn't help anyway. Ever since Karen moved in, he'd become distant, often taking her side in disputes and dismissing the girl's complaints as exaggeration or attention-seeking. Around midnight, Lily heard Karen's bedroom door close, and shortly after, the sound of snoring. Moving with the careful quiet she'd perfected over recent months, Lily crept downstairs, avoiding the third step that always creaked. The basement. Doctor was locked, but Lily knew where Karen kept the key, on a high shelf in the kitchen pantry. Standing on a chair, she retrieved it, her heart pounding so loudly she feared it might wake Karen. With the key clutched tightly in her small hand, Lily unlocked the basement door and descended the stairs, using the flashlight function on the old smartphone her father had given her for emergencies. The basement was cold and damp, filled with boxes and old furniture. In the far corner, curled up on an old camping mattress, was Sarah. "Sarah," Lily whispered, rushing to her sister's side. "I'm here. I'm going to get you out." Sarah looked up, her face tear-streaked and pale. "I'm cold, Lily," she whimpered. "And hungry. Karen didn't give me any dinner." Lily helped her sister stand, noticing how Sarah's legs trembled. "We have to be super quiet," she warned. "Karen's asleep, but if she wakes up..." They made it upstairs, and Lily relocked the basement door, returning the key to its hiding spot. In the kitchen, she gave Sarah a granola bar and some water, watching anxiously as her little sister devoured them. "I want Daddy," Sarah said, her voice quavering. "He's at work," Lily reminded. But we need to get help. Karen will be really mad when she finds out I let you out." Lily thought of Ms. Martinez, how she always said they could talk to her about anything, but school was miles away and it was the middle of the night. Then she remembered the phone, the one she'd used as a flashlight. Her father had told her it could still call 911, even without service. "I'm going to call for help," Lily decided, her young face set with determination beyond her years. "We need to go to my room so Karen doesn't hear us." Back in Lily's bedroom, with the door closed and a towel pressed against the gap at the bottom to muffle sound, Lily dialed 911. When the dispatcher answered, she spoke in a whisper, terrified that Karen might hear, despite being on the second floor. "I need help. My sister is locked in the basement and I can't get her out. My dad's girlfriend did it. Please come quick. I'm scared she'll come back." The dispatcher, a veteran named Gloria who had handled thousands of emergency calls in her 20-year career, recognized immediately that she was speaking to a child in genuine distress. She kept her voice calm and reassuring as she asked Lily for her address and the names of everyone in the house. "Are there any weapons in the home?" "Sweetheart?" Gloria asked, following protocol, while simultaneously dispatching officers to the location. "I don't think so," Lily whispered, "but Karen gets really mad sometimes. She throws things." "You're doing great," Gloria assured her. "Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. Officers are on their way. Can you and your sister stay in your room with the door closed until they arrive?" "Yes," Lily promised, "but please hurry. I'm going to stay on the line with you until the officers get there," Gloria told her. "You don't have to talk if you're worried about making noise. Just keep the line open." Lily held her sister close as they huddled on the bed, the phone pressed between them. Sarah, exhausted from her ordeal, fell asleep against Lily's shoulder, but Lily remained wide awake, listening for any sound that might indicate Karen had discovered them. 7 minutes later, though it felt like hours to Lily, there was a knock at the front door. Even from upstairs, she could hear the authoritative voice announcing, "Riverdale Police. Open the door." What happened next unfolded with dizzying speed. Karen's angry voice carried up the stairs as she answered the door in her bathrobe, her initial confusion quickly turning to indignation as the officers explained why they were there. Lily could hear her denying everything, calling it a misunderstanding and suggesting that Lily was troubled and prone to making up stories. But then, heavy footsteps climbed the stairs and a gentle knock sounded on Lily's bedroom door. "Police officers," a male voice called. "Are you Lily?" Lily opened the door to find 2 officers in the hallway. One, a tall man with kind eyes and graying hair at his temples, knelt down to her level. His nameplate read, "Davis." "I'm Officer Davis," he said gently, "and this is Officer Chen. You called 911 about your sister." Lily nodded, stepping back so they could see Sarah, who was now awake and clinging to her older sister's arm. "She was locked in the basement," Lily explained, her voice stronger now that help had arrived. "Karen does that when she's mad at us. I found the key and let her out, but I was scared Karen would put us both down there if she found out." Officer Chen, a younger woman with a gentle demeanor, went to one knee beside Sarah. "How long were you in the basement, sweetheart?" she asked. "Since morning," Sarah replied quietly. "It was dark and cold and I didn't have food." Officer Davis's expression remained professional, but Lily noticed his jaw tighten. "Thank you for being so brave and calling us," he told Lily. "We're going to make sure you and your sister are safe now." Downstairs, Karen's protests had grown louder. "This is ridiculous. Robert will be furious when he hears about this. Those girls are manipulative little liars. They've resented me from day one." "Ma'am, please lower your voice," another officer was saying. "We need to investigate these allegations." "Investigate what? That I put a misbehaving child in timeout?" That's called parenting. Officer Davis turned to his partner. I'm going to call for a female officer to stay with the girls while we check out the basement. Within 30 minutes, the Thompson house was transformed into an official crime scene. The basement yielded damning evidence: the camping mattress with a child-sized depression, a plastic bucket that appeared to have been used as a makeshift toilet, and most disturbingly, a hasp and padlock on the outside of a small closet door, inside which investigators found drawings Sarah had made on the walls, stick figures of two girls holding hands, beside what appeared to be a woman with an angry face. By the time Robert Thompson arrived home from his night shift, bewildered and alarmed to find police cars in his driveway, Karen was being placed in handcuffs, and his daughters were sitting in the back of a police cruiser, wrapped in blankets, and being spoken to gently by a social worker named Jennifer Wilson. What the hell is going on? He demanded, rushing toward his children only to be intercepted by Officer Davis. Mr. Thompson, I'm afraid we need to talk, the officer said gravely. Your daughters have disclosed some very concerning information, and we found evidence that supports their claims. Robert's face paled as Officer Davis explained the situation. That's impossible, he protested weakly. Karen wouldn't. She loves the girls. She's been so helpful since their mother died. Sir, there's a padlocked closet in your basement with your younger daughter's drawings on the walls inside, Officer Davis said bluntly. Drawings that suggest this has happened more than once. Robert staggered slightly, as if physically struck. I work so much, he said, his voice hollow. Overnight shifts, double shifts. Karen said she'd handle things at home. She said the girls were just acting out because they missed their mother, that they needed a firm hand. Mr. Thompson, your 8-year-old daughter called 911 to save her sister, Officer Davis said. Right now, our priority is making sure both children are safe and receive any care they need. Ms. Wilson from Child Protective Services will explain the next steps to you. ID. As the early morning sun began to rise over Riverdale, casting long shadows across the Thompsons' front yard, Lily and Sarah remained in the police car, watching through the window as their father spoke with the social worker. Lily kept her arm around her younger sister, a position she had maintained for hours. Are we in trouble? Sarah asked in a small voice. No, Lily assured her, with a certainty that belied her young age. We're safe now. I promised I wouldn't let anything bad happen to you, remember? Sarah nodded, leaning her head against her big sister's shoulder. You're the bravest person ever, Lily. Lily didn't feel brave. She felt tired and scared and uncertain about what would happen next. But looking down at her sister's trusting face, she managed a smile. Ms. Martinez always says that being brave doesn't mean you're not scared. It means you do the right thing even when you are scared. As they watched, Jennifer Wilson approached the police car and opened the door, crouching down to speak to them at eye level. Hi, Lily. Hi, Sarah. You can call me Jen, she said warmly. I know this has been a really tough night for both of you. We're going to take you to a special doctor who makes sure kids are healthy, and then we'll find a safe place for you to rest. Does that sound okay? Lily glanced back at their house, where their father stood on the front lawn, looking lost and much older than he had the day before. What about our dad? She asked. Jennifer's expression softened. Your dad loves you very much, and he feels terrible about what happened. But right now, we need to make sure you both get the care you need. He understands that. That was how Lily and Sarah Thompson found themselves at Riverdale Children's Hospital at 7 o'clock on a Friday morning, being gently examined by Dr. Eleanor Patel, a pediatrician specializing in child abuse cases. The examinations confirmed what the officers had suspected. Sarah showed signs of malnourishment and mild dehydration, while both girls had various healing bruises that they attributed to falling or being clumsy. Explanations that Dr. Patel had heard countless times from abused children who had been coached to hide the truth. "They're physically okay, considering," Dr. Patel told Jennifer Wilson privately, "but the psychological impact will need addressing. The fact that the older sister took such protective action is both heartening and concerning. It suggests she's been forced into a caretaker role far beyond what's appropriate for her age." After the hospital, Jennifer brought the girls to Sunshine House, a temporary placement center for children awaiting foster placement or family reunification. It was a cheerful building with colorful walls, comfortable beds, and staff trained to make traumatized children feel safe. "You'll stay here for a little while," Jennifer explained as she showed them their shared room. "There are other kids here too, and people whose whole job is to make sure you're taken care of." "Can we still go to school?" Lily asked, thinking of Ms. Martinez and how worried she must be. "Not right away," Jennifer said gently. "There are some teachers here who will help you with schoolwork, and I'll let Ms. Martinez know that you're safe." That first night at Sunshine House, Lily lay awake long after Sarah had fallen asleep, replaying the events of the past 24 hours. For months, she had carried the weight of her sister's safety on her small shoulders, trying to protect Sarah from Karen's escalating cruelty while their father remained oblivious, too consumed by grief and work to see what was happening in his own home. Now that weight had been lifted, but in its place was a new uncertainty. What would happen to them? Would they ever go home again? Would their father forgive them for getting Karen in trouble? As if sensing her sister's distress even. In sleep, Sarah stirred and reached out, finding Lily's hand in the darkness. Lily squeezed it gently, finding comfort in the simple connection. Whatever came next, they would face it together. With that thought, she finally drifted into the first peaceful sleep she'd had in months. Meanwhile, across town, Robert Thompson sat alone in his kitchen, surrounded by the remnants of the life he thought he had been rebuilding. Karen was in police custody, his children were in protective care, and he was left to confront the devastating reality that he had failed to protect. His daughters from someone he had brought into their lives. On the refrigerator door, held by alphabet magnets, was a drawing Lily had made months ago, a picture of their family. Robert, Lily, Sarah, and Karen, all holding hands under a smiling sun. He stared at it now, wondering how he had missed the signs, how he had chosen to believe Karen's explanations over his own children's increasingly troubling behavior. As dawn broke on his second sleepless night, Robert made a decision. He would do whatever it took to regain his daughter's trust and bring them home, even if that meant facing his own failures and rebuilding their family from the ground up. What he didn't yet realize was how long and difficult that road would be, or that the real hero in this story was his 8-year-old daughter, who had found the courage to reach out for help when all the adults in her life had failed her. Back at Sunshine House, as morning light filtered through curtains decorated with butterflies, Lily opened her eyes to find Sarah already awake and watching her. "Morning, brave girl," Sarah whispered, using the nickname their mother had given. "Lily long ago." Lily smiled, feeling something close to hope for the first time in months. "Morning, sunshine," she whispered back. It was what their mother had always called Sarah. For now, they were safe. And sometimes that's enough of a beginning. 3 days after Lily's brave phone call, Officer Michael Davis sat at his desk reviewing the Thompson case file. In his 23 years on the force, he had encountered many disturbing situations involving children, but something about this particular case had lodged itself deep in his consciousness. Perhaps it was the sight of 8-year-old Lily sitting ramrod straight in that police cruiser, her arm protectively around her younger sister, eyes watchful and far too knowing for a child her age. Or maybe it was the meticulous way she had described Karen Mitchell's escalating behavior over the past months, her account revealing both her intelligence and the terrible burden of responsibility she had shouldered. the preliminary hearing. For Karen Mitchell was scheduled for the following morning. She had spent the weekend in custody, denied bail due to the severity of the charges and the prosecutor's compelling argument that she posed a danger to the Thompson children. The charges were substantial: child endangerment, false imprisonment, and child abuse. If convicted, she faced up to 15 years in prison. Officer Davis closed the file with a sigh. The evidence against Mitchell was overwhelming. The padlocked basement closet, Sarah's drawings documenting her confinement, the medical report showing signs of malnourishment and psychological trauma, and most damning of all, Karen's own inconsistent statements during questioning. She had started by denying everything, then shifted to justifying her actions as necessary discipline, before finally attempting to blame Robert Thompson, claiming he knew about and approved her parenting methods. The phone on his desk rang, interrupting his thoughts. "Davis," he answered. "Michael, it's Jennifer Wilson from CPS." The social worker's voice was familiar after the intensive collaboration of the past few days. "I'm at Sunshine House with the Thompson girls. I think you should come by if you can. Lily is asking to speak with you." Davis frowned. "Is everything all right?" "Physically, yes," Jennifer replied, her tone suggesting complications. "But she's having nightmares and she keeps saying there's something important she forgot to tell you. I've tried assuring her that she can tell me and I'll pass it along, but she's insistent about speaking with you specifically." "I'll be there in 20 minutes, Davis said, already reaching for his jacket. Sunshine House was located in a converted Victorian home on a quiet, tree-lined street. Despite its cheerful yellow exterior and playground equipment visible in the backyard, Davis never approached the building without a sense of sadness. Every child within its walls was there because the adults in their lives had failed them in some fundamental way. Jennifer met him at the entrance, her expression a mixture of concern and professional composure. "Thanks for coming so quickly. Lily's in the garden room at the back. Sarah's having her therapy session, so Lily's alone right now." Davis followed her through corridors decorated with children's artwork, past a communal dining area where staff were preparing for lunch, and into a sunlit room with large windows overlooking a small garden. Lily sat in a window seat, a sketchbook open on her lap. She looked up as they entered, her face brightening slightly at the sight of Officer Davis. "Hi, Lily," he said, taking a seat on a nearby chair that seemed comically small beneath his large frame. "Ms. Wilson tells me you wanted to talk to me." Lily nodded solemnly. "I remembered something important about Karen," she said, her voice quiet but steady. "When I told you about the basement, I forgot to tell you about the videos." Davis exchanged a quick glance with Jennifer before focusing back on Lily. "What videos, Lily?" "Karen took videos on her phone sometimes," Lily explained, her fingers nervously tracing patterns on her sketchbook. "When Sarah or me got in trouble, she said she was making them for Dad to show him how bad we were. But she never showed him. I don't think. She just..." Lily paused, struggling for words. "She would watch them later by herself. And sometimes she would make us watch them too, to remind us to behave." A cold feeling settled in Davis's stomach. "Do you know where she kept these videos?" Lily nodded. "On her phone, but also on her laptop. She has a special folder with a password. I saw her type it once. It's perfect, with the number, not spelled out." Davis kept his expression neutral, despite the significance of this information. "That's very helpful, Lily. We'll look into that right away. Is there anything else you remembered that you want to tell me?" Lily hesitated, then flipped her sketchbook around to show him a drawing she had been working on. It depicted what appeared to be the Thompson house, but with dark, heavy lines around the basement windows. Karen put black curtains on all the basement windows after the first time she locked Sarah down there, she explained. She said it was because the sun was bad for the storage boxes, but I think it was so nobody could see inside. Davis felt a surge of both professional satisfaction at this new evidence and personal sorrow that these children had endured such calculated cruelty. "You're being incredibly helpful, Lily," he said gently. "I want you to know that none of what happened was your fault or Sarah's. Karen made very bad choices, and now she'll have to face the consequences for those choices." Lily looked up at him, her young face serious. "Will we have to see her again? At court?" It was Jennifer who answered, moving to sit beside Lily on the window seat. "No, sweetheart. Children your age don't usually have to appear in court. Instead, they have special interviews with people trained to talk to kids, and those interviews are recorded so the judge can see them without you having to be there." Some of the tension visibly eased from Lily's shoulders. "What about Dad? When can we see him?" Again, Jennifer answered, her voice gentle but honest. "Your dad will be coming for a supervised visit tomorrow. He loves you and Sarah very much, and he feels terrible about what happened. But the judge wants to make sure that he understands how to keep you both safe before you can go home." Lily absorbed this information with the same serious consideration she seemed to apply to everything. "He didn't know what Karen was doing," she said, though there was a hint of uncertainty in her voice. "He works a lot, and Karen was always different when he was around." Davis nodded, recognizing the pattern Lily was describing, the classic behavior of an abuser who compartmentalizes their cruelty, presenting one face to the outside world and another to their victims. "That happens sometimes," he said carefully. "But part of a parent's job is to notice when something isn't right with their children. Your dad missed some important signs, and he knows that now." Lily's eyes filled with tears that she quickly blinked away. "He's not a bad person," she insisted. He got really sad after Mom died, and then he met Karen, and he smiled again. I think he just wanted us to be a regular family." The perceptiveness of her analysis, the empathy she extended to her father, despite his failure to protect her, struck Davis as both extraordinary and heartbreaking. This child had been forced to understand adult motivations far beyond what any 8-year-old should have to comprehend. "Your dad loves you," Jennifer assured her, gently touching her hand, "and he's working very hard to make things right. Right now, the most important thing is making sure you and Sarah feel safe and have time to heal." Davis left Sunshine House with a renewed sense of purpose. In his car, he immediately called the detective assigned to the case, relaying Lily's information about the videos. A search warrant for Karen Mitchell's electronic devices had already been executed, but her laptop had been encrypted. With the password Lily had provided, they might now access crucial evidence that could strengthen the prosecution's case. 2 hours later, that evidence was in hand, and it was even more damning than anticipated. Karen Mitchell's laptop contained not just videos of the Thompson girls being berated and punished, but a disturbing journal documenting her discipline methods in meticulous detail, including the periods of basement confinement and food restriction. Even more concerning, investigators discovered similar records related to a child from a previous relationship, a relationship that had ended when that child's father became concerned about Mitchell's harsh parenting style, but had never reported his concerns to authorities. By evening, the district attorney had amended the charges against Mitchell to include patterns of abuse against multiple children, elevating the case from a disturbing, isolated incident to something approaching predatory behavior. While the legal machinery advanced, Robert Thompson was engaged in his own difficult process. In a sterile conference room at the Child Welfare Services office, he sat across from a family therapist named Dr. Elaine Mercer. his hands clasped tightly on the table between them. "I don't understand how I missed it," he said, his voice rough, with emotion. "My own children in my own house. How did I not see what was happening?" Dr. Mercer, a woman in her 50s with a calm demeanor that had helped countless families navigate crisis, regarded him thoughtfully. "Grief can be blinding, Mr. Thompson, and abusers like Karen Mitchell are skilled at manipulation, not just of their victims, but of other adults around them." "That's no excuse," Robert said sharply. "I'm their father. They should have been able to trust me to keep them safe." "You're right," Dr. Mercer agreed, her tone direct but not unkind. "And acknowledging that failure is the first step toward repairing your relationship with Lily and Sarah, but understanding how it happened is also important, not as an excuse, but as prevention against similar blind spots in the future." Robert nodded slowly, the movement weighted with shame. Karen was so good with them at first, helping with homework, making dinners, organizing their rooms. She said she wanted to make my life easier after everything I'd been through. And when the girls started acting out, that's how she described it, acting out, she said it was normal, that they were processing their grief and testing boundaries. "And you believed her because you wanted to," Dr. Mercer observed. "Because she was the first good thing that had happened since my wife died," Robert admitted, the words clearly painful to speak aloud. "Because when she suggested I take those extra shifts, it seemed like she was thinking about our future, about financial security for the girls. I never imagined she was trying to get me out of the house so she could..." He couldn't finish the sentence. Dr. Mercer let the silence settle for a moment before continuing. "Tomorrow, you'll have your first supervised visit with Lily and Sarah. They're going to have questions and feelings that might be difficult for you to hear. Are you prepared for that?" Robert straightened in his chair, his expression resolute, despite the exhaustion evident in every line of his face. "I'm prepared to do whatever it takes to help my daughters heal and to bring them home, no matter how long it takes or how hard it is." "Good," Dr. Mercer said, making a note in her file, "because rebuilding trust is a marathon, not a sprint. These girls have been traumatized not just by what Karen did, but by the shattering of their belief that adults, particularly their father, would protect them. Restoring that belief will take time and consistent effort." The following day, as Robert Thompson prepared to see his daughters for the first time since the night of Lily's 911 call, a different scene was unfolding at the Riverdale County Courthouse. Karen Mitchell, dressed in an orange jumpsuit and handcuffs, was led into a courtroom for her preliminary hearing. District Attorney Elena Vasquez stood before Judge William Harmon, her posture confident as she presented the state's case against Mitchell. "Your Honor, new evidence has come to light that transforms our understanding of this case. What initially appeared to be a deeply troubling but isolated incident has now been revealed as part of a pattern of calculated abuse spanning multiple years and affecting multiple children." Karen's court-appointed attorney, Martin Green, attempted to argue for bail, suggesting that his client was being demonized for strict parenting choices. But when DA Vasquez presented the journal entries and video evidence recovered from Mitchell's laptop, Judge Harmon's expression hardened visibly. "Bail denied," he declared, his gavel striking with finality. "The defendant will remain in custody until trial. Furthermore, I'm issuing a no-contact order prohibiting any communication with the Thompson children or any minor under the age of 18. As Karen was led from the courtroom, her face a mask of indignation despite the damning evidence presented, Officer Michael Davis watched from the back row. He had attended many such hearings over his career, but rarely had he felt such a personal investment in the outcome. The Thompson case had affected him deeply, perhaps because of Lily's extraordinary courage, or perhaps because of how close the girls had come to slipping through the cracks of the very systems designed to protect them. His phone vibrated with a text from Jennifer Wilson. Visit between Robert and girls, starting now. We'll update you after. At Sunshine House, in a comfortably furnished room designed to feel homelike while allowing for observation, Robert Thompson sat waiting for his daughters. A therapist named Marcus Reed would supervise the visit, observing the interaction and intervening if necessary to support both the children and their father through what would inevitably be an emotionally charged reunion. When Lily and Sarah entered, there was a moment of hesitation as father and daughters regarded each other across a seemingly vast gulf of hurt and uncertainty. Then, Sarah broke away from the caregiver who had accompanied them and ran to her father, flinging herself into his arms with a sob. "Daddy, I missed you," she cried, her small arms tight around his neck. Robert held her close, tears streaming down his face. "I missed you too, sweetheart. So much." Lily remained by the door, watching the reunion with complex emotions playing across her young face. Robert looked up at his older daughter, his expression a silent plea. "Hi, Dad," she said finally, her voice small but not unfriendly. "Hi, Lily," he replied, reaching out one hand toward her while still holding Sarah. "I am so proud of you. You were so brave to call for help, so brave to take care of your sister when I failed to." Something in his explicit acknowledgement of failure seemed to reach Lily. She moved closer, not rushing into his arms like Sarah, but allowing herself to be drawn into a tentative embrace. "I'm sorry," Robert said, holding both his daughters for the first time in what felt like an eternity. "I'm so sorry I didn't see what was happening. I'm sorry I didn't listen when you tried to tell me that Karen was being mean." "She was nice when you were there," Lily said quietly. "She only got mean when you were gone." Robert closed his eyes briefly, the pain of this simple truth evident on his face. "That doesn't excuse me not noticing how you both had changed, not asking more questions, not making sure you felt safe in your own home." "Are we going to live with you again?" Sarah asked, her face pressed against her father's shirt. Robert looked to Marcus, the therapist, who gave a slight nod indicating he should answer honestly. "Not right away," Robert said gently. "I need to show the judge and Ms. Wilson and all the people who care about you that I can keep you safe and take good care of you. And you both need some time to feel better after everything that happened. But yes, that's the plan. For us to be a family in our home again." "Without Karen," Lily clarified, her tone making it a statement rather than a question. "Absolutely without Karen," Robert confirmed. "She will never be near either of you ever again. I promise." For the next hour, the family engaged in a carefully guided conversation facilitated by Marcus. Robert answered the girls' questions as honestly as age-appropriate explanations would allow, never minimizing his own role in what had happened, but also reassuring them of his love and commitment to change. They played a board game together, the activity providing a structured way to interact that felt normal amid so much upheaval. As the visit drew to a close, Robert had individual moments with each daughter. With Sarah, it was a simple exchange of "I love yous" and a promise to bring her favorite stuffed giraffe from home for the next visit. With Lily, however, there was a weightier conversation. "I know you had to be the grown-up when I wasn't." "There," Robert said quietly as they sat together on a window seat similar to the one where she had spoken with Officer Davis. "That wasn't fair to you. No child should have to protect their little sister from danger in their own home." Lily looked up at him, her eyes older than her years. "I tried to tell you," she said, the words carrying no accusation, just a simple statement of fact. "I know you did," Robert acknowledged, "and I didn't listen well enough. I made excuses and believed what was easier to believe. That's on me, not on you." "Ms. Wilson says we're going to have therapy," Lily said, "to help with the bad memories and nightmares." Robert nodded. "That's right, And I'm having therapy too, to learn how to be a better dad and to understand why I made the mistakes I made. Lily considered this information carefully. So we're all getting help? Yes, Robert confirmed. We all need it in different ways. This seemed to satisfy something in Lily. She reached out and took her father's hand, the gesture small but profoundly significant. I think that's good, she said. After the Thompson family's visit concluded, Marcus Reed met with Jennifer Wilson to discuss his observations. There's genuine love there, he noted, and Robert is taking full responsibility, which is crucial. The younger girl, Sarah, is clearly eager for reunification. Lily is more cautious, which is developmentally appropriate given her experience and the role she was forced to assume. Jennifer nodded, making notes in her file. What's your recommendation? For the path forward, continued individual therapy for both girls, focusing on trauma processing and age-appropriate boundary setting, Marcus replied. Family therapy sessions once weekly with Robert, increasing to twice weekly if progress remains positive. Supervised visits like today's for at least a month, then gradual introduction of home visits, first for a few hours, then overnight stays, building toward full reunification if all goes well. Timeline? Jennifer asked, ever practical. Marcus considered. 3 to 6 months, depending on the children's progress and Robert's consistent engagement with his own therapy and parenting classes. While the Thompson family began their long journey toward healing and reunification, the impact of Lily's brave phone call continued to ripple outward through the Riverdale community. At Riverdale Elementary, Ms. Rebecca Martinez had replayed the events leading up to that fateful day countless times in her mind, questioning whether she could have done more to recognize and respond to the signs of trouble she had observed in Lily. Principal Eleanor Washington, recognizing the staff's need to process the situation, organized a professional development session focused on recognizing signs of child abuse and neglect. Officer Davis and Jennifer Wilson were invited to speak, providing insights from their perspective while being careful to respect the Thompson family's privacy. Children who are experiencing abuse often show warning signs, Jennifer explained. To the gathered educators, changes in behavior, declining academic performance, withdrawal from friends or activities they previously enjoyed, unexplained injuries or improbable explanations for those injuries. But these signs can be subtle, and children, especially those who have been threatened or manipulated, may work very hard to hide what's happening. What should we have done differently? Ms. Martinez asked, the question clearly painful for her. There were signs with Lily looking back, but nothing definitive enough to warrant a formal report. Document everything, Officer Davis advised. Even small concerns. When those small concerns start to form a pattern, that's when you have something actionable, and err on the side of making the report. CPS would rather investigate a concern that turns out to be nothing than miss a child. Who's suffering? Ndul, the school implemented new protocols for tracking concerning behaviors or circumstances, created a more streamlined communication system between teachers who shared siblings, and established closer partnerships with community resources that could support families in crisis before situations escalated to abuse. As October gave way to November, Lily and Sarah's days at Sunshine House fell into a routine that provided the stability they desperately needed. Mornings were devoted to educational activities with the center's teachers, ensuring they didn't fall behind academically during their time away from school. Afternoons included therapy, sometimes individual sessions, sometimes together, and structured recreational activities designed to allow them to simply be children, free from the hypervigilance and fear that had characterized their lives under Karen's control. Sarah, younger and naturally more resilient, showed dramatic improvement within the first few weeks. Her nightmares decreased in frequency. She engaged enthusiastically with the other children at the center and during visits. With her father, she was affectionate and increasingly at ease. Lily's path was more complicated. Her role as her sister's protector had become so deeply ingrained that transitioning out of it proved challenging. In therapy sessions with Dr. Margaret Chen, a child psychologist specializing in trauma, Lily struggled to express anger at Karen, at her father, even at the circumstances that had forced her to grow up too quickly. "It's okay to be angry, Lily," Dr. Chen assured her during one particularly difficult session. "Anger is a normal response when someone hurts you or someone you love." "But being angry doesn't fix anything," Lily replied, her small hands methodically arranging and rearranging a set of wooden blocks on the table between them. "It doesn't fix the past," Dr. Chen acknowledged, "but sometimes feeling our anger, letting it out in safe ways, helps us heal so we can move forward." Gradually, through art therapy, play therapy, and age-appropriate cognitive behavioral techniques, Lily began to process her experiences. She created a feelings book where she could draw or write about emotions that felt too big to express. Aloud, she participated in therapeutic activities designed to restore her sense of childhood, to remind her body and mind that it was safe to play, to be silly, to make mistakes without catastrophic consequences. By Thanksgiving, both Thompson girls were spending weekend days at home with their father, returning to Sunshine House in the evenings. Robert, having completed an intensive parenting course and consistently attended both individual and family, in therapy sessions, had transformed their home environment. Karen's belongings were gone, the basement had been renovated into a bright playroom, and most importantly, Robert had reduced his work hours to ensure he was present and engaged with his daughters. The holiday itself was celebrated at Sunshine House, where families in various stages of reunification gathered for a community meal. Robert arrived early, helping the girls set up decorations and prepare simple dishes they could contribute to the feast. As they worked together in the center's kitchen, there was a tentative return of the easy rapport they had once shared, moments of laughter punctuating the focused activity. "And Dad, can we invite Officer Davis for Christmas?" Sarah asked as she carefully placed cut-out sugar cookies on a baking sheet. "And Ms. Wilson?" Robert glanced at Lily, gauging her reaction to this suggestion. To his relief, she nodded her agreement. "I think that's a lovely idea," he said. "They've been very important people in our journey. Ms. Martinez, too," Lily added quietly. "She kept asking if I was okay, even when I couldn't tell her what was wrong." Robert felt the familiar pang of regret that his daughter had faced such an impossible situation, but he recognized her suggestion as the significant gesture of healing that it was. Lily was beginning to rebuild her trust in adults, to believe in a community of support beyond just herself. "Of course," he agreed. "We'll invite Ms. Martinez too." As November turned to December, the legal proceedings against Karen Mitchell continued to advance. The evidence against her was overwhelming, and facing the possibility of a lengthy trial that would likely end in maximum sentencing, she agreed to a plea deal. 12 years in prison with no possibility of parole for at least 8 years, plus mandatory psychiatric treatment and permanent restrictions on any future contact with minors. When Officer Davis brought news of the plea deal to Sunshine House, he found Lily in the art room, working on a detailed drawing of a lighthouse standing firm against stormy seas. "That's beautiful," he commented, sitting beside her at the large table. "You're very talented." Lily looked up, offering a small smile that reached her eyes, something that happened more frequently now. "It's for my dad," she explained, "for his birthday, next week. Dr. Chen says lighthouses are symbols of safety and guidance through rough waters." "That's a perfect gift then," Davis said. "And speaking of safety, I have some news to share with you, if that's okay." Lily set down her colored pencil, giving him her full attention. About Karen? Davis nodded, choosing his words carefully. She's made a deal with the district attorney. That means there won't be a trial where everyone has to talk about what happened in court. Instead, she's going to go to prison for a long time, at least 8 years, probably more, and she'll never be allowed to be around children again, even after she gets out. Lily absorbed this information with the thoughtful consideration that still sometimes startled Davis, despite his growing familiarity with her exceptional maturity. So she admitted she did bad things? Yes, Davis confirmed. She admitted to everything. Does that mean we can go home for real soon, not just for visits? That's not my decision to make, Davis explained gently. But from what Ms. Wilson tells me, things are moving in that direction. Your dad has made a lot of positive changes, and you and Sarah are doing really well in therapy. Lily returned to her drawing, adding careful detail to the lighthouse's beam. I think we'll be okay now, she said after a moment. Dad's really trying, and I know what to do if something bad ever happens again. What's that? Davis asked, curious about her response. Tell a grown-up I trust, and if they don't listen, tell another one, and another one, until someone helps. She looked up at him, her expression serious but not fearful. But I don't think I'll need to do that, because now lots of grown-ups are really listening. As Christmas approached, the Thompson family prepared for a significant milestone, the girls' first overnight stay at home since October. The house had been thoroughly transformed, not just physically with fresh paint and new furnishings, but energetically. The cloud of fear and tension that had permeated the space during Karen's tenure had been replaced by a palpable sense of care and intention. Robert had created special spaces for each girl. A reading nook for Lily, filled with books selected with the help of Ms. Martinez, and a colorful art station for Sarah, whose love of painting had blossomed during her time at Sunshine House. Most importantly, the front door now featured a symbolic keepsake, a small wooden plaque hand-painted by both girls that read, "Our Safe Home." On December 22nd, as snow fell gently outside, Jennifer Wilson stood in the Thompson living room, completing her final home assessment before the overnight stay. "You've done incredible work, Robert," she said, closing her file after making a few final notes, both with the house and with yourself. Robert, who had once been defensive and overwhelmed, now accepted her professional assessment with quiet gratitude. "I never want my daughters to feel unsafe in their home again," he said simply. "Everything I've done, the therapy, the parenting, glasses, the work schedule changes, it's all been to make sure of that." Jennifer nodded approvingly. "The girls will be brought over by Marcus tomorrow morning at 9. They'll stay until the afternoon of Christmas Day, when I'll come by to check in. Assuming everything goes well, we can discuss next steps toward permanent reunification after the holidays." After she left, Robert walked through the house one final time, checking every detail. The fresh sheets on the girls' beds, the refrigerator stocked with their favorite foods, the nightlights installed. In their room, the hallway, the bathroom, everywhere that darkness might trigger Sarah's lingering fears. The family photos, restored to prominence on walls that Karen had insisted remain austere and impersonal. This Christmas would be modest in terms of gifts. His reduced work schedule and legal expenses had strained finances, but rich in the things that truly mattered: safety, presence, rebuilding trust one small moment at a time. As he stood in the doorway of the girls' shared bedroom, looking at the carefully prepared space, Robert felt a sense of cautious hope. The road ahead would not be easy. There would be setbacks, difficult conversations, moments when the trauma of what his family had endured would resurface unexpectedly. But they had already come so far from that terrifying night when his 8-year-old daughter had shown more courage and clarity than any adult in her life. Christmas morning dawned bright and clear, sunlight reflecting off fresh snow to fill the Thompson house with natural light. Lily woke first, momentarily disoriented to find herself in her own bed after so many nights at Sunshine House. She glanced across the room at Sarah, still sleeping peacefully, clutching the stuffed giraffe their father had rescued from the back of a closet where Karen had hidden it months ago. For a moment, Lily lay still, listening to the familiar sounds of her home, the gentle hum of the heating system, the distant ticking of the grandfather clock in the hallway that had belonged to her mother's family, the soft creaking of floorboards as her father moved about downstairs. There was no fear in this listening, no hypervigilance, just a quiet recognition that she was home and that home was safe again. She slipped out of bed and padded to the window, looking out at the snow-covered yard below. Someone, her father she presumed, had built a snowman overnight, complete with a carrot nose and her mother's old red scarf. Beside it was a smaller snow figure, and beside that an even smaller one. A snow family, waiting for her and Sarah to come add the finishing touches. A future waiting to be built together. February arrived in Riverdale with a bitter cold snap that coated the town in ice and pushed temperatures well below freezing. Inside the Thompson house, now 3 weeks since the girls' permanent return home, Lily stood at the kitchen counter, carefully measuring flour for Saturday morning pancakes. At 9 years old, her birthday had passed during their stay at Sunshine House. She still needed to stand on a step stool to reach the counter comfortably, but her movements were confident as she stirred the batter. "Can I add the chocolate? Chips?" Sarah asked, bouncing on her toes beside her sister. In the months since their ordeal, Sarah had regained the exuberant energy typical of a 6-year-old, her natural resilience helping her heal more quickly than anyone had expected. "Not yet," Lily replied, her tone gently instructive rather than controlling. "First, we need to get all the lumps out. Here, you can stir while I get the griddle ready." Robert Thompson watched this interaction from the doorway, a mug of coffee, warming his hands. These ordinary moments still filled him with a profound gratitude that sometimes caught in his throat. Just 6 months ago, the future of his family had hung in a precarious balance. Now, while they were far from perfect, they were together and healing, slowly, sometimes painfully, but unmistakably healing. "Dad, we need more syrup," Lily called, spotting him by the door. "And can you cut up some strawberries?" "On it, chef," he replied with a small salute that made Sarah giggle. This too was part of their new normal, shared responsibility for meals and household tasks rather than the rigid division of labor that had characterized Karen's time in their home. Robert was learning to be both father and mother to his daughters, and they in turn were learning that they could rely on him. The kitchen had become the heart of their home again, as it had been when his wife was alive. Karen had kept it spotless but sterile, a space for efficient food preparation rather than family connection. Now it was often messy, occasionally chaotic, and always alive with conversation and laughter. As they sat down to breakfast, Robert noticed Lily glancing nervously at the kitchen clock. "Everything okay, sweetheart?" he asked, passing her the syrup. "I just don't want to be late," she replied, cutting her pancakes into precise triangles. "Ms. Wilson is coming at 11 for our family session, and then I have my meeting with Dr. Chen at 2. Robert nodded, understanding his daughter's continued need for the reassurance of schedules and predictability. "We've got plenty of time," he assured her, "and I've already tidied the living room for Ms. Wilson's visit." Family therapy had become a cornerstone of their recovery process. Once a week, Jennifer Wilson came to their home, rather than meeting in her office, observing their interactions in their natural environment and guiding them through exercises designed to strengthen their communication and rebuild trust. These sessions were sometimes uncomfortable, particularly when addressing Robert's past failures to protect his daughters, but they were also vital to the family's healing. "Can we go sledding after all the appointments?" Sarah asked, her face smeared with chocolate and syrup. Tyler from school said the hill behind the library is super fast. Maybe tomorrow, Robert suggested, exchanging a quick look with Lily. Today's pretty full with our sessions, and I think we're supposed to get more snow tonight. It might be better tomorrow afternoon. Sarah's face fell briefly, but she accepted this change of plans without protest, another small sign of progress. Earlier in her recovery, any disruption to expected activities could trigger anxiety or tantrums, her young mind interpreting disappointment as potential danger. The therapeutic work was helping her develop more age-appropriate emotional regulation. After breakfast, while Robert and Sarah cleared the table, Lily retreated to the window seat in the living room, a spot that had become her particular sanctuary. From here, she could see the street and the front yard, monitoring comings and goings while still being part of family activities. Dr. Chen had explained to Robert that this positioning was likely unconscious on Lily's part, a lingering need to maintain vigilance that would gradually diminish as her sense of security strengthened. Lily had her sketchbook open on her lap, a gift from Officer Davis on her birthday. She had shown remarkable artistic talent during art. Her therapy sessions at Sunshine House and drawing had become both an emotional outlet and a genuine pleasure for her. Today, she was working on a detailed scene of their backyard, complete with the elaborate snow fort she and her father had built the previous weekend. Robert paused in the doorway, watching his daughter draw with such focus. Her face in profile reminded him painfully of her mother, the same serious set to her mouth when concentrating, the same slight furrow between her brows. Angela would have been devastated to know what their daughters had endured, but proud beyond measure of how Lily had protected her sister. "That's really coming along," he commented, approaching to peek over her shoulder. "You got a real gift, Lilypad." The childhood nickname slipped out naturally, another small reclamation from the time before trauma had reshaped their family. Lily looked up, a small smile warming her features. "I'm going to give it to Officer Davis when it's finished. He said he's never seen a snow fort with actual rooms before." Michael Davis had remained a steadfast presence in the Thompsons' lives, far beyond what his professional duties required. He had attended Lily's birthday celebration at Sunshine House, helped Robert childproof the basement entrance during the home renovation, and still stopped by every couple of weeks to check in, bringing small gifts for the girls and assurances for Robert that the case against Karen Mitchell remained solid. "That's a lovely idea," Robert said, settling into the armchair across from her. "He'll appreciate it." A comfortable silence fell between them as Lily returned to her drawing and Robert picked up the book he'd been reading, a parenting guide, recommended by Dr. Mercer. These quiet moments together were another kind of healing, rebuilding the easy companionship that had once characterized their relationship before Karen's presence had driven wedges between every family connection. At precisely 11 o'clock, the doorbell rang. Sarah, who had been playing with a dollhouse in the adjacent dining room, froze momentarily, her body tensing in the instinctive fear response that still occasionally surfaced. Robert noticed immediately. "It's just Ms. Wilson, Sunshine," he said gently. "Remember, we knew she was coming." "At 11. Sarah relaxed, visibly nodding. "For our talking time," she confirmed, setting down her doll carefully. Jennifer Wilson had been the Thompson family's assigned social worker for over 4 months now, her calm professionalism and genuine compassion making her an ideal support for their complex situation. She greeted each family member by name as she entered, taking a moment to admire Sarah's dollhouse setup and Lily's drawing before settling into what had become her usual spot on the sofa. "So," she began, opening her notebook, "how has everyone been since our last session? Any challenges or victories you'd like to share?" This simple opening question had become a familiar ritual, establishing a space where each family member could speak honestly without judgment. Sarah usually went first, her responses straightforward and concrete. Today was no exception. "I had a bad dream about the basement," she admitted, twisting a strand of hair around her finger. "But I remembered what Dr. Fletcher said about changing the ending. So I made the dream have me and Lily and Dad all escape together, and then we got ice cream." Jennifer smiled encouragingly. "That's excellent, Sarah. Using those dream reshaping techniques is really helpful. How did you feel after you changed the ending?" "Better," Sarah said with a definitive nod, "and Dad let me sleep with my light on all night." Robert had initially struggled with the concept of allowing Sarah this comfort, worried it might reinforce her fears rather than help her overcome them. But he had learned to follow the therapist's guidance, understanding now that healing wouldn't follow a straight path and that his daughters needed different supports at different times. "Lily," Jennifer prompted, "how about your week?" Lily took longer to formulate her responses, always thoughtful in her self-assessment. "Ms. Martinez asked me to help a new girl at school," she said finally. "Her name is Zoe, and she just moved here and doesn't know anyone. I showed her around and invited her to sit with me at lunch." Though Lily presented this information matter-of-factly, both Jennifer and Robert recognized the significance of the development. For months after returning to school, Lily had kept to herself, declined leadership roles she'd previously embraced, and showed little interest in forming new friendships. This step toward reaching out represented a meaningful shift in her recovery. "That was kind of you," Jennifer acknowledged. "How did it feel to be in a helper role at school?" Lily considered this. "Good. I think Zoe was really nervous, and I remembered feeling that way when we came back to school after everything. It helped to have someone show her where things were." "It sounds like you showed empathy," Jennifer observed, "using your own difficult experiences to understand someone else's feelings." Lily nodded, seeming pleased with this interpretation. "Yeah, and Ms. Martinez told me I did. A good job." The session continued, with Robert sharing his own updates, a promotion at work that would allow him to maintain regular hours while improving their financial situation, and his progress in the father's support group he had joined at the community center. Then Jennifer guided them through a new activity, using a deck of cards with emotion words to help them practice identifying and expressing feelings that might otherwise remain unspoken. When Sarah pulled the card reading "angry," she hesitated, looking uncertain. "It's okay to feel angry," Jennifer assured her. "Everyone feels angry sometimes. Can you tell us about something that made you feel angry this week?" Sarah glanced nervously at her father before answering. "I got angry when Dad said I couldn't have a sleepover with Maddie yet," she admitted in a small voice. "I know other kids have sleepovers, and it made me mad that I can't." Rather than immediately defending his decision, Robert practiced the active listening techniques he'd been learning. "You felt frustrated because you want to do normal activities like your friends, and my rules seemed unfair," he reflected back to her. Sarah nodded, relieved that her anger hadn't upset him. "I wasn't mad at you exactly," she clarified. "Just mad about everything being different for us." "That makes a lot of sense," Robert acknowledged. "And while I still think we need to wait a bit longer for sleepovers, I appreciate you telling me how you feel. Maybe we could invite Maddie over for dinner next week as a first step." This compromise brought a smile to Sarah's face. "Yes, please. She loves spaghetti." Jennifer caught Robert's eye, giving him a subtle nod of approval. These moments of healthy negotiation were building blocks for the family's new foundation, one where feelings could be expressed openly and boundaries were explained rather than arbitrarily imposed. After the family session concluded, Robert prepared lunch while the girls worked on homework assignments they'd received Friday afternoon. The kitchen radio played quietly in the background, creating a soundtrack for this ordinary Saturday ritual that felt extraordinary in its normalcy. "Dad," Lily said as they sat down to eat, "I've been thinking about something." There was a seriousness in her tone that made Robert give her his full attention. "What is it, honey?" "I want to paint my room." The request was so unexpected, so wonderfully mundane, that Robert took a moment to process it. Since returning home, Lily had been hesitant to make any changes to her personal space, as if maintaining the familiar provided some sense of security. "That sounds like a great idea," he said, careful not to overreact and potentially frighten her with excessive enthusiasm. "Did you have a color in mind?" "Yellow," Lily replied definitively. "But not bright yellow, more like sunrise yellow. Warm." "I want to paint my room too," Sarah exclaimed, never one to be left out. "Can I paint it purple, please?" Robert found himself smiling, a genuine, unforced smile that reached all the way to his eyes. "I think we could absolutely make that happen. Maybe we could look at paint samples this week and do the painting next weekend." The conversation that followed, about paint finishes and whether glow-in-the-dark stars could be added to ceilings, was so blessedly normal that Robert had to excuse himself to the pantry for a moment, overcome by unexpected emotion. These small steps toward reclaiming joy and ordinary childhood desires were the true markers of healing, more significant in many ways than the formal progress notes in their therapy files. After lunch, Robert drove Lily to her individual therapy appointment with Dr. Chen, while Sarah stayed with Mrs. Abernathy, an elderly neighbor who had become a beloved part of their support system. The grandmotherly woman had approached Robert shortly after the girls returned home, offering help in a no-nonsense manner that brooked no refusal. Her own children were grown, she explained, and she had time on her hands. What started as occasional emergency childcare had evolved into regular Saturday special time with Sarah, while Lily attended therapy. In Dr. Chen's waiting room, Lily settled into her usual chair with her sketchbook, while Robert filled out the weekly progress form. These questions had become familiar, tracking sleep patterns, appetite, social interactions, and any concerning behaviors or notable improvements. Today, he was pleased to note several positive developments. Lily had slept through the night 4 times that week, had independently initiated a social interaction at school, and had expressed interest in redecorating her room. Dr. Margaret Chen emerged from her office precisely on schedule, her warm smile genuine as she greeted Lily. "Good afternoon, Lily. Are you ready for our time together?" Lily nodded, tucking her sketchbook under her arm and rising from her chair. These sessions were private, a space where she could process her experiences without worrying about protecting her father's feelings or setting a good example for her sister. Dr. Chen had explained to Robert that this confidentiality was crucial for Lily's recovery, though she would always inform him if there were safety concerns. "I'll be right here when you're finished," Robert assured his daughter, as he did every week. "Maybe we can stop by the hardware store on the way home to look at those paint samples?" Miss Lily's answering smile was small but real. "Okay," she agreed before following Dr. Chen into the therapy room. For the next hour, Robert alternated between reading his book and responding to emails on his phone. He had become friendly with several other parents in the waiting room, other families on their own healing journeys, though the specifics of their situations remained private. There was a tacit understanding among them, a recognition of shared struggle that required no explanation. Karen Mitchell's name had faded from the local news cycle in the months since her plea deal and sentencing, but the case had sparked important community conversations about child welfare and the responsibility of adults to recognize and report concerns. Robert had been approached about speaking at an upcoming forum for parents at the community center, sharing his perspective on recognizing warning signs that might indicate a child is in distress. He was still considering the invitation, uncertain if he was ready to translate his family's trauma into public education. When Lily emerged from her session, her expression was contemplative, but not distressed. Sometimes she came out tearful or withdrawn, needing quiet time before she was ready to engage again. Today, she seemed relatively balanced, greeting Robert with a nod before gathering her belongings. "How was it?" he asked, the same gentle inquiry he made each week. "Good," Lily replied, her standard response regardless of the session's actual emotional tenor. But then she added, "Dr. Chen thinks my idea about painting my room is really positive. She said making changes to our environment can be a way of moving forward." Robert nodded, recognizing that this additional information was Lily's way of including him in her therapeutic process, another small step toward trust. "She's right," he agreed, "and I think it's a great idea too." The hardware store was busy with weekend home improvement enthusiasts, but Lily remained close to Robert's side as they navigated to the paint section. Sarah would have been overwhelmed by the crowds and noise, but Lily had always been more comfortable in public spaces, her anxiety manifesting in different ways than her sister's. Together, they studied the rainbow wall of paint swatches, Lily methodically examining every shade of yellow available. This careful deliberation was characteristic of her decision-making now, a child who had been forced to make life-or-death choices in a traumatic situation, who now approached even small decisions with serious consideration. "What do you think of this one?" she asked finally, holding up a soft, buttery yellow sample. "It's called Morning Light." "It's perfect," Robert said honestly. "Warm and cheerful without being too bright." He didn't add that the color reminded him of the kitchen in their first family home, the one Angela had painted herself when they were newlyweds, full of hope and plans for the future. They collected the sample along with several purple options for Sarah to consider, then made their way to the checkout. As they waited in line, Robert noticed Lily watching a father and daughter ahead of them, the man kneeling to listen intently as the girl, about Sarah's age, explained something with animated gestures. "Dad," Lily said quietly, "I talked to Dr. Chen about the school talent show today." Robert kept his expression neutral despite his surprise. The annual talent show was a major event at Riverdale Elementary, one that Lily had enthusiastically participated in before Karen entered their lives. Last year, during the worst of their home situation, she had refused to even attend as an audience member. "Oh," he responded, encouraging but not pushing. "I think I might want to do it this year," she continued, still watching the father and daughter ahead of them. "Ms. Martinez said I could play the piano if I wanted. She said I could practice in the music room during lunch." Robert's heart swelled with a complicated mixture of emotions: pride in Lily's courage, grief for the time and opportunities lost, hope for her continuing recovery. "That sounds wonderful," he said carefully. "Your mum's piano has been pretty quiet. It would be nice to hear music in the house again." The baby grand piano in their living room had been Angela's most treasured possession, and she had begun teaching Lily to play when she was just 5 years old. After Angela's death, Lily had continued lessons briefly, but they had stopped entirely during Karen's time in their home, another joy that had been systematically extinguished. "I don't remember all of it," Lily admitted, a hint of vulnerability in her voice. "I might need lessons again." "We can absolutely arrange that," Robert assured her. "Mrs. Kaminsky still teaches, I believe. She always said you were one of her most promising students." Lily nodded, appearing to file this information away for further consideration. Her recovery process often worked this way. careful steps. Forward, periods of assessment and integration, then more steps when she felt secure enough to proceed. When they arrived home, they found Sarah and Mrs. Abernathy in the kitchen making cookies, flour dusting both their clothes, and a significant portion of the countertops. The elderly woman winked at Robert over Sarah's head, her expression communicating both affection for his youngest and an acknowledgement of the creative chaos they had generated. "We're making snickerdoodles," Sarah announced proudly. "They're Mrs. A's special recipe, and she's teaching me all the steps." "Ah, I can see that," Robert replied, unable to contain his smile at the domestic scene so different from the sterile perfection Karen had demanded. "Lily, want to show Sarah what we got at the store?" As Lily spread the paint samples on the table, away from the baking supplies, explaining their room renovation plans to an increasingly excited Sarah, Robert helped Mrs. Abernathy clean up some of the more extensive flour distribution. "She's doing so well," the older woman murmured, nodding towards Sarah. "Such a resilient little soul. Asked if we could make cookies for Officer Davis today, since she remembered. He mentioned liking cinnamon things when he visited last week." This thoughtfulness, this ability to think of others' preferences and find joy in creating something to share, represented healing of the deepest kind. Sarah, who had endured such cruelty at such a young age, was rediscovering her natural generosity and happiness. "We're getting there," Robert agreed quietly, "day by day." That evening, after dinner and baths and the bedtime routine that had become a sacred ritual of security in their home, Robert sat at the kitchen table, updating the family calendar for the coming week. Lily's therapy appointments and Sarah's play therapy sessions were marked in different colors. The family therapy session with Jennifer Wilson had its own designation. School events, homework projects, and Robert's support group meeting were all carefully noted. This level of organization had been recommended by both therapists, providing the girls with visual certainty about their schedule while helping Robert ensure nothing was overlooked. The calendar, prominently displayed on the refrigerator, had become a symbol of their commitment to maintaining the stability that was so crucial to the children's recovery. As he added, "Look at paint samples" to Saturday's square, with a small note about possibly visiting Mrs. Kaminsky about piano lessons, Robert heard a sound he hadn't heard in their home for over a year. The delicate notes of the piano in the living room, hesitant but unmistakable. He set down his pen and moved quietly to the doorway. Lily, supposedly in bed, sat at the piano in her pajamas, fingers carefully picking out the beginning of a simple piece Angela had taught her. Her small face was a study in concentration, lips pressed together as she searched her memory for the next notes. Robert remained silent, unwilling to interrupt this momentous return to something so fundamentally connected to her mother and her pre-trauma identity. When she finished the short sequence, he gently cleared his throat to avoid startling her. Lily looked up, not surprised to see him. "I couldn't sleep," she explained. "I kept thinking about the piano." "You remember more than you thought," he observed, keeping his tone light despite the emotion tightening his chest. "Some of it," she agreed. "Mom always said music stays in your fingers even when your mind forgets." It was the first time in months Lily had voluntarily mentioned her mother, another small miracle in a day that had contained several. "She was right about that," Robert said, "just like she was right about how talented you are." Lily ran her fingers lightly over the keys without pressing them. "Do you think she would be happy that I want to play again?" "I know she would," Robert replied without hesitation. "She would be so proud of you, Lily, for so many reasons." Lily nodded, absorbing this assurance. "I think I can sleep now," she said, closing the piano lid carefully. As she passed Robert on her way back upstairs, she paused to give him a quick hug, a spontaneous gesture of affection that once would have been commonplace but now felt like yet another gift in a day filled with small reclamations. After checking that both girls were settled in bed, Robert returned to the kitchen to finish organizing the calendar. His phone buzzed with a text message from Jennifer Wilson. "Just checking in after today's session. How did the evening go? Any concerns?" He thought about how to respond, trying to find words that could capture the significance of the day's ordinary miracles. Paint samples and piano notes, cookie baking and calendar planning, the mundane fabric of family life being rewoven thread by careful thread. "Good evening," he typed finally. "No concerns. Actually, several breakthroughs. Lily is considering piano lessons again. Sarah baked cookies for Officer Davis. Both girls talking about redecorating their rooms. Small steps, but in the right direction." Jennifer's response came quickly. "Those aren't small steps at all. Those are huge leaps of healing. Well done, Team Thompson." Team Thompson. It was how Jennifer often referred to them, acknowledging that recovery was a collaborative effort between the girls, Robert, and the network of professionals and supporters who had gathered around them. Tonight, the term felt especially apt. They were a team finding their way forward together, reclaiming joy and safety and ordinary pleasures one day at a time. Robert glanced at the family photo now prominently displayed on the refrigerator door, a recent picture taken at sunshine. House's holiday celebration. In it, he stood with an arm around each daughter, all three of them smiling genuine smiles that reached their eyes. It wasn't the life he had envisioned when he and Angela had dreamed of their family's future, but it was a life worth fighting for, worth celebrating in all its imperfect, hard-won glory. Outside, snow began to fall again, adding fresh powder to the backyard where tomorrow, weather permitting, they would go sledding and add more rooms to their elaborate snow fort. Inside, the house was quiet but not silent. The gentle hum of the dishwasher, the occasional creak of settling floorboards, the soft sound of Sarah's nightlight music playing from upstairs. The ordinary soundtrack of a home where healing was happening, where brave hearts were finding their way back to joy. One ordinary miracle at a time. 1 year to the day after Lily Thompson's life-changing 911 call, spring sunshine streamed through the windows of Riverdale Elementary School's auditorium. The space buzzed with anticipation as families settled into their seats for the annual talent show. Behind the heavy burgundy curtains, students in varying states of nervous excitement prepared for their performances, while teachers moved among them offering encouragement and last-minute adjustments. In the third row center, Robert Thompson sat with Sarah beside him, the 7-year-old fidgeting with excitement in her purple dress. On his other side was Jennifer Wilson, no longer their assigned social worker, but now a friend invited to share this milestone moment. Officer Michael Davis sat just behind them, having rearranged his shift to attend. The presence of these two professionals turned supporters represented how far the Thompson family had journeyed, from crisis intervention to celebration, from trauma to healing. "Do you think Lily's nervous?" Sarah whispered to her father, loudly enough that several nearby parents smiled indulgently. "Probably a little," Robert acknowledged, "but she's practiced so hard, she's going to be wonderful." The reality of Lily performing in the talent show still felt somewhat miraculous to Robert. Her journey back to the piano had been tentative. At first, halting scales and simple melodies practiced with Mrs. Kaminsky, the elderly piano teacher, who had known Lily since she was 5. But something had awakened in his daughter during those lessons, some essential connection to her pre-trauma self that strengthened with each session. Principal Eleanor Washington stepped to the microphone, welcoming everyone to the showcase, and explaining that this year's event had a special theme: resilience. Our students have chosen performances that represent their own journeys of growth and perseverance, she explained. "We hope you'll be as inspired by their courage as we have been." The program began with a third-grade class performing a choreographed dance, followed by a fifth grader's impressive magic act. Sarah clutched her program tightly, counting down the performances until Lily's turn. As a fourth-grade saxophone player concluded his rendition of "What a Wonderful World," Sarah tugged on Robert's sleeve. "She's next, Dad," she stage-whispered. "Lily's next." Robert squeezed her hand, his own heart quickening as Principal Washington returned to introduce the next performer. "Next, we have a very special performance from fourth grader Lily Thompson, who will be playing Beethoven's Für Elise on the piano." As the curtain parted to reveal Lily seated at the upright piano on stage, Robert felt his throat tighten with emotion. His daughter sat poised and composed, her posture reflecting months of dedicated practice. She wore a new dress for the occasion, sunshine, yellow with a white collar, and her chestnut hair was pulled back with a matching ribbon. From where he sat, Robert could see her take a deep, centering breath before placing her fingers on the keys. The opening notes filled the auditorium, delicate but confident. As the familiar melody unfolded, Robert found himself transported back to evenings before tragedy had struck their family twice over. First with Angela's illness and death, then with Karen's abuse. He remembered his wife sitting beside Lily at their home piano, gently guiding those same small hands across the keys, mother and daughter sharing something that transcended words. Beside him, Sarah watched her sister with undisguised awe. To Robert's other side, Jennifer dabbed discreetly at her eyes. Behind them, Officer Davis sat perfectly still, his usual professional demeanor softened by the music and its significance. When Lily reached the more complex middle section of the piece, her fingers faltered momentarily on a difficult passage. Robert held his breath, knowing how much this performance meant to her. But after the briefest pause, she recovered, continuing with renewed determination. That moment of recovery, the refusal to be derailed by a small mistake, seemed to epitomize her entire journey over the past year. As the final notes resonated through the auditorium, there was a breath of silence before the audience erupted into applause. Lily rose from the piano bench and executed a small, graceful bow, her face glowing with quiet pride. When she looked out toward her family, Robert gave her a thumbs up, blinking rapidly to clear his vision. "She did it, Dad!" Sarah exclaimed, clapping enthusiastically. "Lily wasn't even scared." "She was probably a little scared," Robert corrected, gently. "But she did it anyway. That's what courage looks like." The remainder of the talent show passed in a blur of performances, but Robert's attention kept returning to the memory of Lily at the piano, his daughter reclaiming her voice, her joy, her future. When the event concluded with the principals, closing remarks and a final round of applause for all participants, the audience began dispersing toward the reception in the school cafeteria. Robert guided Sarah through the crowd, Officer Davis and Jennifer flanking them as they made their way toward the stage where Lily was gathering her sheet music. When she spotted them approaching, her serious expression bloomed into a genuine smile. "You were magnificent," Robert told her, opening his arms. Lily stepped into his embrace without hesitation, another small miracle in a year filled with them. "I made a mistake in the middle part," she said against his shoulder. "And you recovered beautifully," he assured her. "That's what matters." Sarah was practically vibrating with excitement beside them. "Lily, you were the best one. Miss Martinez was crying happy tears. I saw her." Lily accepted her sister's exuberant praise with characteristic grace, her cheeks flushed with pleasure and lingering adrenaline. As the siblings compared notes on the performance, Jennifer touched Robert's arm lightly. "This is quite a milestone," she observed quietly. Robert nodded, unable to fully articulate what the day meant to him, to all of them. When I think about where we were a year ago, he began, then shook his head, overwhelmed. That's exactly why days like today matter so much, Jennifer said. They become new markers in your family's timeline. Before and after isn't just about trauma anymore. It's also about triumph. Officer Davis approached then, a small bouquet of yellow daisies in his hand. He presented them to Lily with a formal bow that made her giggle, a sound that had once been rare, but now frequently brightened their home. "These are for the pianist," he said solemnly. "Beethoven himself would have been impressed." "Thank you, Officer Davis," Lily replied, accepting the flowers with equal formality before her composure dissolved into another smile. "Please, I think after everything we've been through together, you can call me Mike," he told her, not for the first time. His continued presence in their lives had evolved from professional duty to genuine affection, a bond forged during the darkest days and strengthened through recovery. The reception in the cafeteria offered punch and cookies arranged on paper-covered tables decorated with student artwork. As the Thompson family made their way through the crowd, receiving congratulations and compliments on Lily's performance, Robert noted with quiet satisfaction how naturally his daughters now navigated social situations. Sarah chatted eagerly with her classmates, while Lily engaged in conversation with her music teacher, discussing the next piece she hoped to learn. Ms. Martinez, Lily's fourth-grade teacher, approached Robert with a warm smile. "That was quite something," she said. "When I think about that withdrawn little girl from last year, the transformation is remarkable." "We've had a lot of help," Robert acknowledged, glancing toward Jennifer and Officer Davis, who were now sampling cookies with Sarah. "A whole community of support." "That's what community should be," Ms. Martinez said firmly, "and Lily has paid it forward, you know. The way she took Zoe under her wing when she was new, that's made a tremendous difference. Zoe's mother told me it completely changed their transition to Riverdale." This information, that Lily's empathy had meaningfully helped another child, filled Robert with a particular kind of pride. His daughter had taken her painful experiences and transformed them into compassion, already finding ways to create good from what she had endured. As the reception wound down, Ms. Martinez announced that a special tree planting ceremony would take place on the school grounds in 15 minutes, the culmination of the resilience theme that had shaped the talent show. Families began making their way outside to the designated area where a young oak sapling waited beside a freshly dug hole. The spring air carried the promise of renewal as Principal Washington explained the significance of the ceremony. "This oak tree represents the strength, endurance, and growth we hope to nurture in all our students," she said. "Each class has written messages of hope and resilience that will be placed in a time capsule buried beside the tree to be opened when these students graduate from high school." Representatives from each grade level came forward to place their class contributions in the metal container. Lily, selected to represent the fourth grade, stepped forward with a rolled parchment tied with yellow ribbon. She placed it carefully in the capsule, her expression solemn yet peaceful. Later, as they walked home together in the afternoon sunshine, Robert asked about the message her class had contributed. "We each wrote something about overcoming a challenge," Lily explained. "But we don't have to tell what we wrote. It's private until the capsule is opened." Robert respected this boundary, understanding that Lily's healing journey included developing healthy privacy rather than the forced secrecy Karen had imposed. "That sounds meaningful," he said simply. "I'm proud of how you shared your music today. That took real courage." Lily was quiet for a moment as they walked, Sarah skipping ahead of them on the sidewalk. "Dad," she said finally, "do you think I could teach piano to Sarah? Not big lessons or anything, but just simple songs to start. Mrs. Kaminsky says sometimes. Teaching helps you learn better. The request represented yet another step in Lily's recovery, her willingness not only to reclaim music for herself, but to share it with her sister, to turn a once painful reminder of loss into an opportunity for connection. I think that would be wonderful, Robert told her, if Sarah's interested. I already asked her, Lily admitted with a small smile. She says she wants to play chopsticks for the talent show next year. They had nearly reached their home when Robert's phone chimed with a text message. He glanced at the screen to see a note from Jennifer. Wanted to let you know, final approval came through for the Sunshine House expansion. The new wing will include a dedicated music therapy, a room. The board is naming it the Lily Thompson Music Center in recognition of how your family's story inspired the fundraising campaign. Can we discuss next steps when you're ready? Robert read the message twice, emotion welling up unexpectedly. The idea that something positive could emerge from their family's trauma, that other children might find healing through music because of Lily's journey, felt like the closing of a circle he hadn't realized needed completion. He would show Lily the message later when they had a quiet moment together. For now, he simply sent a quick acknowledgement to Jennifer and slipped the phone back into his pocket, focusing instead on the present moment. His daughters racing up. The front walk of their home, Lily's talent show program clutched proudly in her hand, Sarah's voice calling back to them to hurry up because she was hungry for celebration ice cream. That evening, after ice cream and pizza and a movie chosen by Lily in honor of her successful performance, after Sarah had fallen asleep on the couch and been carried up to bed, Robert sat with his older daughter on the porch swing. The spring. Night was cool but not cold, stars emerging in the darkening sky above them. I have something to show you, he said, pulling out his phone and opening Jennifer's message. This came today, and I wanted you to see it. Lily read the text carefully, her brow furrowed in concentration. They want to name a music room after me? She asked, sounding puzzled. Why? Because your story inspired people, Robert explained. When the community learned how you protected your sister, how you found the courage to call for help, and then how music became part of your healing journey, it moved them. The fundraising campaign for Sunshine House's expansion exceeded its goal because so many people wanted to help create something positive from what happened. Lily considered this information with characteristic thoughtfulness. So other kids who go to Sunshine House will get to play music too, even if they don't have pianos at home. Exactly, Robert confirmed. They'll have instruments and teachers and a beautiful space to explore music as part of their healing process. Like I did, Lily said softly, understanding dawning in her eyes. Like you did, Robert agreed. Jennifer asked if we'd be willing to be involved in planning the space, choosing instruments, helping design the room layout, but only if you feel comfortable with that. It's completely up to you. Lily was quiet for so long that Robert wondered if he'd overwhelmed her. But when she finally spoke, her voice was steady and sure. I think Mom would really like that, she said. Using music to help other kids feel better when sad things happen to them. I think so too, Robert said, his heart full. She always believed music had healing powers. It does, Lily confirmed with the certainty of personal experience. When I play, I can feel her with me, not in a scary ghost way, she clarified quickly. More like her love is still here in the music we shared. No. In all the therapy sessions, all the careful conversations about grief and trauma and recovery, Lily had never articulated this connection so clearly. That she could do so now, could speak of her mother with love untainted by fear, could acknowledge Angela's continued presence in her life through music, felt like the most profound healing of all. She would be so proud of you, Robert said, his voice rough with emotion. So proud of how brave you've been, how you've taken care of your sister, how you've worked so hard to heal and grow. She'd be proud of you too, Dad, Lily replied, leaning her head against his shoulder. for getting us back home and making things safe again." They sat together in comfortable silence for a while, the porch swing creaking gently beneath them. From inside the house came the faint sound of Sarah's nightlight music, a soothing melody that had become part of their evening ritual, a gentle background to peaceful sleep that had once seemed impossible. "I decided something today," Lily said eventually, after the talent show. "What's that?" Robert asked. "I want to be a music therapist when I grow up," she declared, "like Ms. Rodriguez at Sunshine House, who helped me start playing again when I was too scared to try. I want to help other kids find their music, especially after bad things happen." The clarity of this vision from a 9-year-old might have seemed precocious in another context, but Robert recognized it as another facet of Lily's healing, her ability to imagine a future shaped by her own choices rather than by trauma, to transform her painful experiences into purpose. "I think you'd be wonderful at that," he told her sincerely. "You already understand how powerful music can be for healing. That's a gift you can share with others." "It might take a long time," Lily acknowledged pragmatically. "I have to finish elementary school first, and middle school and high school, and then college." Robert smiled at her methodical planning. "One step at a time," he agreed. "Just like recovery, just like learning a new piano piece. You practice the difficult parts until they become easier, and eventually you can play the whole song." Lily nodded, recognizing the metaphor from her own experience. "That's what Dr. Chen always says. Healing isn't linear. Sometimes you have to practice the hard parts over and over." "She's right," Robert said. "And you've been practicing those hard parts with so much courage, Lily. Today, at the talent show, when you made that small mistake but kept going." That's exactly what healing looks like. Noticing the difficult moment, but not letting it stop you from continuing. I was really nervous when it happened," Lily admitted. "But then I remembered what Mrs. Kaminsky told me, that even professional pianists make mistakes sometimes. They just don't panic about them." "That's wisdom that applies to more than just music," Robert observed. "Learning not to panic when things don't go perfectly, that's a life skill that will serve you well." As the evening deepened around them, a shooting star streaked across the sky above their porch. Sarah would have made an excited wish, but Lily simply watched its path with quiet appreciation. "Do you need to head inside soon?" Robert asked, noticing her stifle a yawn. "It's been a big day." "In a minute," Lily replied, settling more comfortably against him. "This is nice, just sitting together." So they remained on the porch swing a while longer, father and daughter contemplating the star-filled sky, the completed talent show, the music therapy center that would bear Lily's name, and all the promises of a future reclaimed from trauma's shadow. The gentle rhythm of the swing matched their breathing, a metronome marking peaceful moments rather than fearful ones. Inside their home, Sarah slept peacefully, secure in the knowledge that tomorrow would unfold as promised. Sunday pancakes, a trip to the park if the weather held, more piano exploration with her sister. The predictable rhythm of their reconstituted family life provided the foundation upon which both girls were rebuilding their sense of security and trust. Spring had brought literal and metaphorical renewal to the Thompson family. The basement, once a place of terror, had been completely transformed into a bright, welcoming recreation space where neighborhood children now gathered for movie nights and board games. The kitchen remained the heart of their home, often messy with evidence of shared cooking projects and family meals. The piano in the living room was no longer silent, but filled the house daily with scales, simple tunes, and increasingly complex pieces as Lily's skills redeveloped. Most importantly, laughter had returned. Sarah's uninhibited giggles, Lily's more measured but genuine amusement, Robert's deep chuckle that had once been rare, but now punctuated their days regularly. This soundtrack of joy, more than any material, Changes to their home marked how far they had traveled from the darkness of the previous year. A car drove slowly down their street, its headlights sweeping across the front of the house. A year ago, such an occurrence might have triggered anxiety in both girls, a fear that Karen might somehow return despite the prison sentence and restraining orders that kept her firmly removed from their lives. Now, neither Lily nor Robert reacted with anything beyond casual notice. "Time to head in," Robert said, as a cooler breeze ruffled the emerging leaves on the maple tree in their front yard. "You've got piano practice in the morning before we visit Grandma Ellis." Lily nodded, standing up and stretching. Robert's mother had moved to Riverdale 3 months earlier, relocating from Florida to be closer to her only family after learning the full story of what had happened in her absence. Her presence had added another layer of support to their healing journey, another adult who loved the girls unconditionally and who helped share the parenting responsibilities that had once fallen solely on Robert's shoulders. As they went inside, Lily paused by the piano, running her fingers lightly across the closed lid. "Dad," she said suddenly, "do you think we could invite Ms. Wilson and Officer Davis, Mike, to dinner next weekend to thank them for coming to the talent show?" "That's a lovely idea," Robert said, recognizing this suggestion as yet another sign of his daughter's healing, her desire to maintain connections with the people who had supported them through crisis, to transform professional relationships into personal ones. "We could grill in the backyard if the weather's nice. And maybe Mrs. Kaminsky too," Lily suggested. "She gave me extra lessons before the talent show and didn't even charge you for them." "Absolutely," Robert agreed. "It could be a proper thank you gathering for everyone who's helped us this past year." Lily nodded, satisfied with this plan. "Good night, Dad," she said, heading toward the stairs. "Today was a really good day." "One of the best," Robert agreed, watching her ascend with a confident stride that bore no resemblance to the fearful, hyper-vigilant child who had returned from Sunshine House months earlier. "Sleep well, Lily Pad. I love you." "Love you too," she called back softly, mindful of her sleeping sister. Left alone downstairs, Robert moved through his evening routine, checking door locks not from paranoia but prudent habit, adjusting the thermostat, turning off lights. In the kitchen, he paused before the refrigerator, where Lily's talent show program was now displayed alongside Sarah's latest art project, a family portrait showing 3 smiling figures beneath a bright yellow sun. Next to these mementos was a save-the-date card for the Sunshine House Music Center dedication ceremony scheduled for the summer, an event where Lily had tentatively agreed to play the inaugural piece on the new grand piano that would be the room's centerpiece. The fact that she felt capable of performing in that context, returning to the place that had sheltered her during her most vulnerable time to help launch a resource for other traumatized children, spoke volumes about her recovery. Robert touched the talent show program gently, remembering the swell of pride and emotion he'd felt watching Lily on stage. Her performance had been more than a recital. It had been a declaration that she was reclaiming her voice, her passions, her future, that she could take something Karen had systematically tried to extinguish, her music, her confidence, her very sense of self, and not only recover it, but share it publicly, represented healing of the most profound kind. As he headed upstairs to check on his daughters one final time before retiring to his own room, Robert reflected on the journey of the past year. There had been so many dark moments, nights when Sarah's nightmares seemed unending, days when Lily retreated into protective silence, sessions with therapists that left them all emotionally drained. The path from trauma to healing had not been straight or easy. But today, watching Lily bow before an applauding audience, seeing Sarah's face alight with pride for her sister, feeling the supportive presence of the community that had gathered around them in their darkest hour, today had been unequivocal evidence that healing, while not linear, was indeed possible. He paused first at Sarah's doorway, where the nightlight cast star-shaped patterns across her sleeping form. Her stuffed giraffe was clutched against her chest, her breathing deep and even. No nightmares disturbed her rest tonight. Across the hall, Lily's room was similarly peaceful. She'd already changed into pajamas and was sitting up in bed reading, another reclaimed pleasure that had been denied during Karen's reign of fear. She looked up as Robert appeared in her doorway. "Just wanted to say goodnight again," he explained. "Not too much longer with the book, okay? You need your rest after such a big day." "Just finishing this chapter," she promised. "Dad, I was thinking, maybe we could invite the whole class to the music center dedication so they can see what happened because of the 911 call. Is that okay to talk about now?" The question revealed how carefully Lily still navigated the territory of their family's trauma story, always mindful of what was private, what was public, what might upset her sister or father. But it also showed her emerging understanding that their experience, while painful, could serve a greater purpose when shared appropriately. "I think that's a wonderful idea," Robert told her. "We can talk to Ms. Martinez about it. And yes, Lily, it's okay to talk about what happened. You never need to hide or feel ashamed about any part of your story. What matters is that when something was very wrong, you were brave enough to ask for help." Lily considered this, then nodded. "That's what I wrote in the time capsule today," she confessed. "That sometimes the bravest thing is asking for help when you're scared." "That's wisdom worth sharing," Robert said, his heart full. "Good night, sweetheart. I'm so proud of you." "Night, Dad," she replied, returning to her book with the comfortable absorption of a child who knew she was safe, loved, and free to lose herself in stories without fear of punishment or interruption. As Robert finally retired to his own room, he realized that for the first time in over a year, he felt completely at peace about his family's future. There would still be challenges ahead. Trauma's echoes could resurface unexpectedly, and the normal complications of raising two girls into adolescence and beyond would bring their own trials. But today had confirmed what he had begun to believe in recent months, that they had not merely survived their ordeal, but were genuinely thriving in its aftermath. That Lily's brave phone call 1 year ago had not only rescued her sister from immediate danger, but had set in motion a journey of healing that had transformed them all. Outside his window, the same stars that had witnessed their family's darkest moments now kept watch over their recovery. Inside their home, too little. Girls slept peacefully, secure in the knowledge that they were safe, protected, and deeply loved. And in the space between those realities, between the vast universe and their small, repaired family unit, existed all the ordinary miracles of healing. A piano recital completed despite a small mistake, a basement reclaimed from fear, a music room that would soon bear Lily's name and offer healing to other wounded children. Tomorrow would bring Sunday pancakes, a visit to Grandma Ellis, perhaps piano lessons from sister to sister, ordinary activities infused with extraordinary meaning because of the journey that had preceded them. This was the truest measure of their healing. Not that they had forgotten the trauma or erased its effects, but that they had integrated it into their story without allowing it to define their future. 1 year after a child's courage had changed everything, the Thompson family slept peacefully beneath their roof, each of them carrying within them the knowledge that had been so painfully earned. That darkness could be survived, that help would come when summoned, that healing, while neither simple nor straightforward, was always possible. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out.